Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Beautiful spot here. It's a bit cold. I don't know if you can see, but up behind me here we got some snow last night. Most of it's melted off here, but it's really cold. It's about 30 degrees and it's going to get below freezing tonight. And we've got some new gear to try out. I brought a new tent, a sleeping bag, and a pad we're going to test out. And it should just be a nice trip. I'm going to show you guys a few things that I got to unpack, and we'll set up the tent. For this trip, we're going to be using the UniGear Space Dome 2 tent. Now, they were kind enough to send me this along with a sleeping bag and a pad, which we're going to be trying out on this trip. I'm going to set this up. I got to put down a ground sheet, and I'll kind of show you guys the process of that, and then we'll go over the stats on this tent, and that'll give you guys kind of an idea of what you can expect if you guys have this or you're thinking about buying it. The Space Dome 2 tent retails for just about $100, and the overall weight comes in at 6.72 pounds. The majority of the tent's fabric is polyester, and the dimensions are roughly 7 by 4 with a peak height of just under 4 feet. The tent does come with 4 good quality aluminum poles, stakes, and guy outs, so you are going to have everything you need to set this tent up and pitch it correctly. Now, under UniGear's Amazon listing, they state that this is for summer use, but we did put this through a rain test, and I'll show you guys more on my findings in that later on in the review. But this definitely is not a tent that you'd want to use in heavy winter conditions. I was able to set this up in just under 10 minutes. It is pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Really not a whole lot different than any other tent that I've used. The aluminum poles seem to be of good quality. The stakes seem to be of good quality. And I really like the fact that this tent does have 2 vestibules. It's got kind of a standard vestibule that you'd see on a lot of different tents out on this side, and then on the other side it's got more of like an awning like you'd see on a baker style tent. So I like that. You know, if you wanted to use that, you could use some trekking poles to get it up, or you could get some tree branches out here in the field. This tent does have 2 vents on each side that you can prop up with these little posts here with the Velcro, and so you do have some airflow on the top, and this fabric seems to go quite a ways. I'd say about 5 inches up into this vent. And that was one of the things that I looked at that I was kind of worried about. You know, if it rained, was water going to be able to get up in here? But we'll get into detail with that later. So as far as size goes, this seems to be really good. I am over 6 feet tall, and a lot of tents give me issues once I get my sleeping gear in. I seem to, run out of room, and I feel kind of cramped. I don't feel claustrophobic in here. I probably got a good 10-11 inches above my head, and so that gives me a lot of room to kind of move around. I could change in here, and I like the fact that there is 2 doors, and you can get plenty of airflow in here if you want. But as far as having 2 people in here, I don't see it being an issue. I think it's really ideal for one person, a dog, and a good amount of gear. I think, this is going to work fine for us. But so far, I'm pretty happy with it. I like the design, and I like the fact that it does not feel claustrophobic. Now, UniGear did send me their 30-degree bag. This is the Campy bed, 30 degrees, it says -1 Celsius, and tested. And so we're going to try this out tonight. I did bring some other sleeping gear in the event that it gets too bad, because I expect it is going to get below freezing. And then they went ahead and they sent me the Campy P3. This is just an inflatable pad. It's regular wide. And so we're going to get this together, see how it works, and we'll get it in the tent, see how all that stuff fits in here. So the tent seems pretty spacious in here. You know, I've got my big gear pack. This is about 75 liters. And then I got my boots. Plenty of room here. This would definitely fit 2 people, but there'd be no room for your gear. It would be pretty tight. You'd have to keep your gear out underneath the vestibule. But for 1 person and a dog and a bunch of gear, I think this tent is perfect size-wise. And I like that there's enough headroom. I've got my lantern hanging. I'm not hitting my head. And that's not the case with a lot of other tents that I've used that are a similar size, you know, as far as 2-person. A lot of them don't have headroom. You know, they might be large, but they don't have headroom. And so that part of this, I really like the design. My biggest concern is obviously with the condensation. We'll figure that out in the morning. Hopefully, you know, I don't wake up in the middle of the night feeling drips on my face, because that's happened to me before. So we'll keep an eye on it. If that happens, I'll bring you guys back and we'll check it out. But otherwise, we're going to get to sleep, and we will see you guys in the morning. Hey, cheers you guys, good morning. Marley and I slept pretty good last night, and it did get cold. It was down into the low 20s. We got up this morning, there was ice everywhere. And matter of fact, the water that we had out front here completely froze over. I had to let it thaw out before I could make my coffee. But it's a beautiful day. As far as the condensation goes in the tent, I didn't find there to be any issue with that. And I kind of expected it to be, but it wasn't. I didn't feel stuffy or anything. We slept really good in the sleeping bag. That pad worked really well. I am going to have a separate review for those items coming up here pretty soon. But for now, we'll stick with the tent. And as far as the design of it and the size, I really like it. I think they did a good job with the design. I really like the two vestibules. I like the Baker style out here. I like the standard vestibule on the other side, and that really allows you to kind of open up the tent, get a lot of airflow, and I think they've done pretty good with that. You know, all the mesh seems to be in the right places. The ease of setting it up is very good, very easy to set up, very easy to pack down. The aluminum poles and the stakes seem to be of good quality. I really like the stuff sack. You know, works really well for packing the tent in. I like that there's a lot of guy out points. You know, that's important in conditions where it's windy. This tent does have quality control issues. I do see loose threading on the inside of the tent around the mesh area, and that can kind of become a problem later down the road. You know, threads can come loose and ultimately split those seams. And one of the biggest negatives of this tent is it is not waterproof. As of all my gear, I always like to test it prior to actually using it in the field. That's what I did. I set this up in my backyard, and we were expecting a good sized rainstorm. And so it rained for about 16 hours. It wasn't very heavy, but it was very consistent. And the next morning I went out and I checked the tent, and it did in fact leak. And it leaked considerably. And most of the leaks were coming around the fly, and they were dripping down the mesh. The backside of the corners of the floor were completely soaked. There was pooling of water. There was a little bit in the center. Now, in all fairness, UniGear does state that this tent's to be used for summer conditions, but in a lot of parts of the country we have monsoonal rains. That's the case here. You know, it can be sunny, and then 5-10 minutes later it's dumping rain. And so if you were out in this tent, there's no doubt you would get wet, your gear would get wet, and if you were in a condition like we were last night where it was really cold, that could be a dangerous situation. And so that's one thing UniGear needs to realize, is people are using their stuff in a variety of conditions. Even if they say, you know, it's for summer use, people are using it. Weather is unpredictable, and you know, rain is going to happen. And so that's just kind of how I look at it. The other thing I wanted to mention about this tent is the weight. Now, it comes in at just about 7 pounds, which is pretty heavy for a tent like this. And they claim in their Amazon listing this is suitable for backpacking. I can tell you right now that's not the case. Most backpacking tents, you know, come in at right around 3, maybe 4 pounds. I guarantee you, try and stuff this in your backpack, you're going to run out of space, and you're not going to have room for other necessities that you need, and it's too much weight, simply put. This is more suitable for car camping, you know, at a campground, your backyard, maybe a festival, something like that. And so if you're looking for a backpacking tent, this is definitely not it. As far as it leaking, that's definitely an issue UniGear needs to look at, and for the reason that I'd mentioned, you know, weather can be very unpredictable, even in summer. And the last thing we want is to have a gear failure, you know, when we really need it. And I think all tents need to be waterproof. That's just a fact. And the reason for that is weather is unpredictable. And I have talked to other users. They've had the same issues I have with the quality control and with the leaks. This is not just this tent. There's a lot of people that have the same issue. And so let me know in the comments what you guys think, if you have any experience with it. I'm curious to know. I hope I was able to pass on some useful info for you guys. I really appreciate UniGear sending me this to review. I still have the sleeping bag and the pad, which so far has worked really well for me. You guys can expect a review of those two items here in the next couple weeks. And so I appreciate you watching, and we'll talk to you soon.